everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Julie Ricard. I'm Deputy Director for DataPop Alliance. Thank you for all the brave audience who stay up to now. I'll try to make it as lively as possible. And thank you, QCRI and UNDP, for the invitation. We're very happy to be here. DataPop Alliance is an alliance starting by its co-founders, which are the MIT Media Lab, the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative, the Overseas Development Institute, and was later joined by the Flowminder Foundation as a core member. So one of the key questions that drive our work at DataPop are how we can leverage new types of data, so-called big data, and advanced analytics to answer some of the key questions in the development field. And we do so through three main types of activities: collaborative research, training or capacity building in data literacy, and what we call strategy, and includes applied projects that are currently being implemented, and I'll share some examples with you throughout the presentation. And I'm going to go over a few things that we have discussed. I'm not going to go too much in depth into the example. We've heard so many great examples through the day. It's going to be more of a, let's say, a meta-reflection on how we can take those promises of AI and concretely make it work the best way possible. So kind of working from our experience at DataPop around what are the requirements for implementing AI and data for social good. So we can say that in the past decade, we've lived in a so-called data revolution, where most of our actions and interactions as humans, as societies, are being mediated by digital devices, as we know, and thus translated into data, what Stefan was referring to as datafication. Some have called it the data deluge, as you can see in the cover of The Economist in 2008. And along with this, like new types of data, were born advanced analytics, which include machine learning, deep learning, which we can refer broadly to as AI, as well as new fields of study, such as computational social science or social physics, and many questions which we already raised during the day. For example, questions around protection of personal data and privacy, which has fostered the development of new legal frameworks, such as the GDPR in Europe. In 2014, the UN published the World at Count reports, which was calling for global efforts to mobilize the data revolution for all people and the whole planet. And 1 year later, we adopted the SDGs, right? As compared to the MDGs, it was twice as many goals, almost 4 times as many indicators, putting measurement at the core of the agenda, and through measurement, putting data at the core of the agenda. And in the past year, we've seen some great examples. Again, we've heard them throughout the day, of using these new types of data and analytics to address some of the most pressing challenges in the development field, for example, mapping poverty. I also had a video for you, which I will try to make work in a second, and if it doesn't, we'll just go through something else. Let's see, because it takes a bit of time to load since we closed it.
While we can't say AI is general magic, it is giving us core tools to start putting in place systems that we know will help with key issues like hunger, famine, epidemics, overall health and well-being.
AI offers an extraordinary possibility of accelerating solutions in the time we have to solve the problems.
We are now applying artificial intelligence to the art of farming, a very old industry, also adopting the latest in technology. So through artificial intelligence, a farmer can now integrate massive sources of data, whether it's data from the combines, it's weather satellite data, it's data from the fields, taking all that data together and through an artificial intelligence solution actually making recommendations to the farmer on how he can increase the production of his land.
AI has has enormous capacity and potential to solve problems that require an enormous amount of computing and pattern recognition that human beings struggle with.
The way drugs are going to be designed in the future, and again already starting to be, is by having models of the molecules and how they interact, for example, with, say, the virus proteins, and then doing a search to find the best drug for the best problem. I think this, for example, how are you going to cure cancer?
By 2020, you should be able to walk into your doctor's office. Your doctor should be able to sequence your entire genome, take that along with your medical imaging data, compare that with the world's data of genome sequences and medical imaging data. From that, determine the matches between your tumor and others, what the treatments were in those other cases, and the outcome. Did the patient survive or not? And from that, devise for you your personalized treatment, and do that entire process in just one day. It's completely possible through artificial intelligence.
The UN summit.
Okay, we'll stop here. But what I wanted to show is a bit this, well, or to make you feel is this excitement towards AI, right? Which we've been dealing with throughout the day. But I want to come back to something that Jennifer was mentioning early in the day, is that, well, this is very exciting and it's happening now, but for AI systems to work out, there is some things we need, and that includes huge amounts of data, and that includes infrastructure to deal with this amount of data, right? And this is one of the reasons why we've heard data being called the new oil today, for better or for worse. So you're mostly a technical audience, so I will go over this very briefly. We've talked about these new types of data, how we can call them digital breadcrumbs. That means, like, we're talking about mobile phone data, online traces that we leave online, traces that we leave when we use transportation cards, social media data exhaust, financial data from credit card and bank transaction, etc. So all these data are at the core of the question, and I'll refer to them as crumbs, and they have been defined and characterized through the 3 V's, right? So by their volume, the velocity and variety they take, and they are at the core of the question. However, as we were talking about, these new types of data require new types of analytic, right, which we call capacities here. So broadly AI, which we've been talking about. And last but not least, what I want to focus on is the last C, so communities and culture, because along with this new data is a new ecosystem, a new political economy that brings a lot of questions, that raises a lot of questions, but also we see emerging new key stakeholders. We have been talking a lot about the private sector, for example, that has become an indispensable player in this field of data for social good, of AI for social good, because, well, they hold part of this new commodity. And in this political economy, some of the questions that have been raised, so there were questions about this from the audience, include data protection and privacy, international standards that don't really exist today, and by which we can measure how we are using this data successfully or not. There are challenges intrinsic from the data, such as representativeness, so we can call sample bias selection, so not everyone has a cell phone, right? We've mentioned this. But also there is the big question of data access and data sharing. So how do we promote data sharing across sectors, across partners, while addressing some of those key issues that we are discussing? So Stefan was talking about the data collaboratives, which is an amazing initiative, an example of the thoughts and reflections that are brought into the discussion. I want to talk a little bit about the DataPop project, which was mentioned by Pedro in the Q&A of the last session, which is another example of an attempt to build these new and innovative data systems that are developing standards and norms in order to leverage this private sector data in an ethical way and at scale. So you see here the consortium for the DataPop project brings together a lot of partners, including us, DataPop Alliance, the MIT Media Lab and the Imperial College, which are the academic branch And we are currently working in 2 countries with the main telcos in the country, including Orange, Sonatel, and Telefónica, as well as the National Statistics Office. And really, the core idea of Opal is what Pedro was saying. So we want to give access to this data, right? But exactly not to the data itself. What we want to make sure is that we have access to the information that can provide this data. So in order to do so, the technical aspect would be to create a platform through which we can send queries through open algorithms that are certified by a body, and that will extract the insights and make it available to end users, which include National Statistics Office, include civil society. And that way, Opal is not only building a technical solution, it's also building a governance solution. So the fact that the algorithms are open and certified are contributing to creating standards around the use of AI. And we work closely in the 2 countries where we have pilots with the key stakeholders in the country. And that includes in Senegal, so I was saying Orange Sonatel, also ANSD, which is the National Statistics Office, and in Colombia, Telefónica, DANE, and DNP, the Department of National Planning. And along with the project in this governance component, we also have capacity building to make sure that the teams that are working with us building this pilot are going to be able to keep working on it in a sustainable manner. So why do we need, again, this infrastructure? We've seen a lot of examples. I'll go through another one very briefly. So this project is a project we're working on in Colombia. It's called Ciudad Segura. And it's a project that aims to better understand and eventually predict the dynamics of crime in 6 Colombian cities through a data-centric approach. And we're looking at risk factors that can predict crime, both in terms of hotspots, so why is crime so hyper-concentrated in certain areas, and in terms of what we can call hot people, so what some people that may have a similar background or life history as others will deviate into crime and others won't, which are some of the 2 core questions in citizen security that haven't been fully understood yet. And the goal of the project is to leverage different types of data. So we're talking about geolocated crime data, to which we have access through the National Police, who is one of the partners in the project, socio-economic and socio-demographic data at the level of neighborhoods and soon at the level of blocks, because the new census is going to be released and incorporated into the analysis. And we also add this so-called big data layer using CDRs, data exhaust from Foursquare, and potentially satellite imagery. Under the petition of Ingmar, so just to give you an idea of the type of collaboration that we build around the project. So in this case, DataPop is the coordination and brings expertise, but has put together a team with a strong background in this type of analysis. And that includes the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative, the Fondazione Bruno Kessler, who's affiliated to the University of Trento, and the MIT Media Lab. The project is funded by the Inter-American Development Bank, and who also brings political support and strategic support, in particular through a collaboration with the Citizens Crime Commission in New York. And in Colombia, we are working with the National Police, we're working with an NGO called Fundación Ideas para la Paz, and we have talked, of course, with all the local governments in the cities where we're working, some of the data groups, including Medata in Medellin. And this is pretty much the type of model that we try to promote at DataPop. So really, the idea is that those projects need to have a local buy-in. And the connection that we build, the systems that we build, need to be made with and through the relevant stakeholders in the country. And this is the case in most of the countries where we have activities, which are on the slide right now. So I'll stop here. Happy to chat further or reply to any questions. Thank you very much.